Well, welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today, I'm going to talk about a number of different things. If you watched our last video, we're talking about hobbies with vintage stuff and how one hobby can be tied to other vintage hobbies. And because most everything we use around here is vintage. So anyway, we've had kind of a dry spell, weather-wise and junk collecting-wise. So I decided it was time for a change. So July was a really good month for collecting junk. So anyway, I don't have any bad habits really. You know, just the only thing that people say, how come you collect all that old junk? Well, I just tell them, well, somebody has to. It might as well be me, because I can fix it and use it. But anyway, since we like Sears junk, I ran across this Craftsman mower. Now this one is probably from 56 to 59 era, 1956 to 59, and has the die-cast alloy deck, and the engine here is a Lawson engine, which eventually became Tecumseh. But anyway, it's in pretty decent shape. Engine, I got it turning over good, doesn't have any compression, so I have to do a valve job and maybe rings and stuff on it. But things that, you know, I check it all out. You know, the underneath the deck is nice, it's not broken out or anything like that, and the blade's still on it and whatnot. So, but the throttle cable here to the carburetor, as you can see, it's all rusty and whatnot and was froze up. But I like to try and save any vintage stuff if I can. So I use my magic elixir here, Cyclo Breakaway, and so I soaked it all the way through and let it sit for a while, because you have to let the penetrant work a bit. And then on the top where the cable comes out, I took a wire brush and cleaned it. And on the cable ends where they come out and they're bare, once you get the rest off them, I use this good stuff here, looper plate number 105. I use this for multiple things, so I'll talk about that later. And I also lube the cable with oil. And of course I have to use my vintage Eagle oil can. So anyway, you can see the recoil is missing, so guess what I found out in my favorite place on the property, Motorhead shed. So I got this really nice, works perfect. So I'll be able to put the recoil part of it. The shroud's a little different because it's newer, but anyway, pretty decent. So anyway, what I'll do is, you can see it's dirty and crummy looking, so I'll clean it up and we'll come back and take a look at it when it's cleaned up. Well, you can see it came out really nice. Most of the paint's still on it. It's nice metallic green. Engine's nice and red. See the Sears decal here. Chute here. Front wheel here looks like it's, I thought it was broken, it's just the axle's loose. Anyway, when you get new projects, it's always fun to find all the things that need to be TLC'd and fixed up. So we'll be back later with more good stuff. Well, we got that new Craftsman mower. Did some footage on it. So here's some interesting stuff on it. Here's a 1956 original Sears ad, and it shows that exact lawnmower right here being on sale. We'll come over and do a close-up on it here, but it said it was selling for $49.88. Now my original one is a 1955, and it sold for around $40. So what they did to make this more expensive, they put this little shroud on the top of the engine, and the gas tank goes right here, and then this goes on the front. It's got your deal for spark plug for killing the engine there. But this little addition here made it $10 more expensive, and back then that was a fair amount of dough. And then this fits our original two-stroke version. Now the other one, the one we just got, the picture is really a lot smaller down here. And we'll come over and do a close-up on that too, but it has a 4-cycle Lawson engine on it, 2 horsepower. And the 2-cycle one here, they rated it at 2 horsepower in 1956, but in 1955 it was at 1.5 horsepower. And so what they would do to get the different power rates was all the same engine. All they did is change the setting on the governor so the engine would run faster. And some unscrupulous places, I remember Montgomery Ward's had a lawnmower, had a Clinton engine on it. It said 2, 2.5, or 3 horsepower on it. And to buy the different horsepower ratings on it, there was about a $30 difference. And the mower was 100% the same. All they did is change the adjustment on the governor so the engine ran slower on a 2-horse, medium on the 2.5, and 3-horse they had it running faster at about 3,600 RPM. So anyway, we'll come over and take some close-ups of this. Like I say, here's the 1956 version, and this is the deluxe because it has the shroud on it here. And then down here the same mower, basically, except for the handle is different on it. It has a 4-cycle Lawson, and it's almost $65, $64.88. But it's interesting, they're both rated at 2 horsepower, but you had to pay a lot more for the 4-stroke engine. So anyway, we'll go out and talk about the mowers here in a bit. Okay, well, here's the 2 Craftsman mowers. This is my original one here in 1955. And you know, it's what Sears had was 3 different grades of mowers, good, better, and best. And this was a mid-grade, the better one, because although it has the alloy deck, which originally was a lawnboy deck, it has a Power Products engine on it, which is, they were kind of an inexpensive engine for their time. But anyway, as we showed in the flyer there, this shroud here goes on here like that, and the gas tank sits here. So in 1956 they could charge you $10 more for the same mower. Because of this, probably cost like 50 cents to make it at that time. So here's our new acquisition, which we had talked about earlier. It has an alloy deck too, but it's quite different actually. You know, the name is all flushed down here. This has a ridge in it and stuff, and ribs on it, or strength in it. Maybe there's an issue at some point with cracking or something like that. And like I say, it has the 4-stroke Lawson engine, and it didn't have a recoil on it, so I went out the Motorhead shed and got me a recoil. And so, and I talked about the throttle cable here. You can see that works nice and slick now. It was completely frozen up when I got it. A little bit of TLC can get this old junk in operation. Now it doesn't have any compression or anything, so I'm probably going to have to tear it down, do a valve job, and maybe put rings and stuff in it if it's salvageable. But anyway, you can see the handles are different, mainly for the throttle control here. But anyway, kind of neat to have a pair of almost twins. Well, I was talking earlier in a video about a long dry spell, both in the weather and in junk collecting. So in July, I fell off the cliff there and went junk collecting. So here's some of the junk we got. So yeah, I try not to look on Craigslist too often, but I did, and these 2 lanterns showed up there, and they are, with a pair of them, are like 15 bucks. You know, usually something like this sells for 50 to 100 bucks depending on the condition and whatnot. So anyway, this is a Dietz. It's a number 2 D light, and they were made from 1913 to 1954. And then they changed the name on them and still produce them, I believe, today, still by the Dietz Corporation. The thing that's kind of unusual on it is this really large font or fuel tank, and it has a burn time of 40 hours, and it's a big lantern. You know, it's got a big wide wick and stuff, and actually puts out a lot of light for a kerosene lantern. And then the little one here, this is a Feurehand. It's made in Germany. They started making lanterns in 1913 and sold them all over the planet. They used to have a whole broad spectrum of lanterns, but today they only make one, and it's the one that's just a little bit bigger than this one. But on the globe here you won't see it, but it says made in Germany and all kinds of neat stuff. So I've got these both in good working order. So we'll be right back. Well, we've been talking about flashlights a bunch here lately, and ash flash, or as I call it, ash trash, made in Hong Kong. So here's a few more examples. This one here is brand new in the wrapper still. So come over and see if we can see the name on it here. Well, our next ash flash here is really an odd piece. This is a new old stock flashlight, and it has a real interesting feature. I'll show you here in a bit, but it's an interesting idea, but probably really a bad idea. So anyway, we'll come over and show you what it is. Okay, well, you can see it's got a flashlight here, and there's a chuck on it here and screwdriver bits, so that if you're in an area where it's dark and you're doing light work and stuff, the light will shine right down where you're working. Like I say, probably thought it was a good idea, but in practicality probably not so much. Anyway, it's in the brand new in the package here. Okay, well, like I say, here's the flashlight, and there's two standard bit screwdrivers, and then there's a Phillips bit. You lift this up and pull them out, and the lens on here is kind of a Fresnel to focus the light, and so you can see it barely puts out enough light to see what you're doing. So anyway, just another fun piece of trash in the junk collection. We'll be right back. Okay, our next little flashlight here, it's kind of interesting. It has a handle on it, you can carry it. So it has two switches down here. One turns on the main light like that, and the other turns on the red light at the top. And so I figured that what this is for when you're out camping. So if you're hiking down a trail and it's dark, you can see where you're going, and when you run into a Sasquatch, you turn on the red light to scare them off. Well, speaking of camping, this was a July acquisition too, or ash flash lantern here we had in the prior video. So if you're camping, you need a light for going down the trail, you need a light for your camp, and what else do you need? A camp stove. Well, like I was saying, you can't go camping without a camp stove. So here we have a very unusual and fairly rare ash flash camp stove, and looks like it's been used a few times. It's basically new. And the feet here fold over when the thing is down like this, and flip over and hold the top down. And there's a little lever here that holds the windscreens. There's little spring clips that hold it there. You can see it's got all the decals and stuff on it. And I know what you're thinking. This is a propane stove, and it's almost too high-tech for Mr. Obsolete. Well, you're right, because I think I have two other camp stoves in my collection that run off propane. One of them's a Winchester and the other is a Preway. Anyway, just another neat little addition. So one of the other things, it has two burners in it. There's a little handle that can go in the side here. Get this out of the way here so we can see it. It goes right in here like this, and you can turn it and it opens the second valve for the second burner. Otherwise it just runs on a primary burner over here. So anyway, like I say, just more good junk. And like I say, the leg here just comes over and folds on top there, and it's got a built-in handle right here, so off you go, looking for Sasquatch. Well, our next thing are a couple of lawn boy patches. Says lawn boy power equipment. Since I really like lawn boy lawnmowers, now I got a patch and put one on my hat and one on my shirt so I can be authentic lawn boy pusher. Okay, well, here's my Power Max 6 McCulloch chainsaw. This isn't new, but I've had it for many years, but I've never used it because when I got it, it had a bad ignition coil, and I just never took the time to look for one really, because I've got, you know, other mini Macs that I use all the time. So anyway, I decided I should put this back in operation and started looking for coils, and ones I found were way overpriced, and so I lucked out. Found me a part saw that has a good coil on it, so I'll use a few little pieces, screws, and just a few things like that on it on this one, and put it back into operation. So remember, vintage is best. We'll see you on the next exciting vintage video.